there was one thing we could do in the UK to make a more dynamic and exciting venture capital culture, what would that one thing be?
I don't regard venture capital as an unalloyed blessing. I have to say, I had more than I care to imagine in the film business, and they weren't all a good thing. I suppose if I take the question, what would make it better? Why do I have to come first? I think that the recent moves from the government to extend EIS will actually shake up the industry here a bit. The limits that are going into the tax breaks is actually going to start to allow venture capital in here to deploy it with tax advantage money. That might not be a good thing insofar as that doesn't scale from a US firm's point of view. That doesn't scale, but it probably helps the UK firms in some respects, and it certainly helps probably entrepreneurs. So in some respects, I think the government's actually probably making more of a change than anybody in this room would otherwise have been able to do individually. I'll keep thinking and pass over to the others.
Yeah, I think capital. In fact, we got dragged into Downing Street. I've got a Downing Street story. I won't bore you with it. They asked this question, and they were, what are we going to do for the technology industry, and blah 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 blah. We want to share our views with the entrepreneurial sector and the venture capital community. And I got there late, and they had this big thing open on the desk, and so I'm really sorry I'm late. Well, could you just kind of fill me in? These are our plans. We're going to build a technology park on Silicon Roundabout. I think, well, great, fantastic. That's your answer. That's what we're going to do to get the UK economy back on its feet. I think we can have technology parks, but I think it is about capital. William's right. What the government have done, there's a fantastic scheme called EIS, which means that you get tax relief as you make investments on the way in. You get loss relief if they go pop, and most of them do. And you get CG capital gains tax free on the way out, and it is fantastic. There was a limit of £150,000 a year. That limit is now up to, I think it's £1 million. Yeah. And what that does, it brings angels in, and angels are very important because they know what they're doing. Most venture capitalists are, frankly, they don't know what they're doing. But whereas angels kind of do, because they've made money and they're putting that money back into the system. So getting those guys to deploy capital in early stage businesses is really, really important. And for us, we back early stage businesses. I think, as you say, we go where angels kind of fear to tread. We back very, very early stage businesses, but we are almost alone. And when we're doing it, we're kind of looking around and say, well, who's with us? Who are our fellow travellers? If this thing takes off, who can sit there and write a $5 million check to get this business in the market? And there are too few people, so I think more capital.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I don't have the experience in venture capital that the gentlemen sitting around me have got. Certainly when I raised money, EIS was instrumental. We factored it into our business plan when we were pitching to angels. So we weren't just pitching the equity, we were pitching the relief before they'd even thought about it themselves. I think time's a factor as well. In terms of tech investments, it seems to me, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, that compared to California, we're relatively young when it comes to massive wins on technology and some of the smaller investments turning into big returns. And so given slightly more time and some of the newer tech businesses in the UK following in the footsteps of some of Mark's exits will probably stimulate a little bit more adventure by some of the high net worth individuals as well as institutional VCs.
We're definitely seeing that. The more successes, the more gets recycled, and I think that really does fuel the market, which has been a huge feature of the success of Silicon Valley. It becomes a self-fulfilling kind of prophecy. So really, the more sort of mega billion-dollar exits around Silicon Roundabout, it'll have a huge impact. How about you, W? Obviously, you got a Google Ventures side of things, so. It's not, you don't just buy companies, do you?
Yeah, my view is slightly different in this particular sense. So going back to venture capital in Europe, in London or Europe, if you're going to you firstly also have another point, which is, where is the supply? Because without the supply, you can raise all the money in the world, but you won't be able to deploy. So the other issue that comes along with that is, where are the returns? And I'm not sure European VCs have quite blown the door away on returns. I think that's one of the things to definitely factor in, and that leads to a cascading effect. I think the government can do only so much, but I'm not one of those big believers that government can force certain secular changes without there being a very broad fundamental change at a broad-based level. And what that means is that you got to give science and maths importance. You don't give that basic importance to those two subjects. You can push all the money in the world. I don't think you're going to get the supply that you need to invest in. I think that's important. The other thing, and as an immigrant, this is something always important to me, is, do you really have free flow of labor people? That's really important. You can have all the debate, you can have all the protectionism, everything that goes with it. But one of the things I've always not understood quite well is actually, in a lot of ways, the UK system for an immigrant coming in is actually very favorable compared to the American. Actually, as an individual, you face way more uncertainty in the States because of the way the labor law works. So actually, there are big pointers out here that are there. But fundamentally, if you don't address at the root level, what is it that you're investing in as a country, you will not get the kind of companies that you're hoping to get. You will, and it then comes down to a chicken and egg. It doesn't mean that there's not enough money chasing the right companies, or is there not enough companies to chase for? I always still veer is that it's the second, because in the first is self-corrective to a certain extent, and no amount of tax incentives can ever change that. But I agree, the EIS definitely has played a big part in especially in Britain.
So being a finance guy, at the margin, I think incentives are helpful, and we see a lot of people knocking on our door, particularly from Ireland and from other countries around Europe and also in Asia, to have centres of excellence. And we do that in Ireland. We've got a customer service centre of what originally started as a customer service centre of about 1,500 people. With the Centre of Excellence grants, we've turned it into a Centre of Excellence for our risk management teams. In Singapore, they have centres of excellence, and we now have probably 500 developers. They were very keen to attract not just intellectual property, which was a key thing for a technology company, but also jobs for people. And so they gave us various incentives, and we committed to provide employment. So I think at the margin, it's not massively significant. But if I just take it from a slightly different angle again, I think you need to create the right environment, and you need to show leadership. We need to have vision. We need to attract talent. And if I give you a couple of examples of the way that we think about innovation, because as we now are a company of 11,000 people, it did feel over the last couple of years that potentially you're getting so big, decisions were taking too long, maybe ideas weren't quite getting the visibility that they need. And we run what we call Lab Rats, an innovation competition. We do it 3 times a year. We say to people, come up with your ideas. We give them no money, we give them no time, no resources. People do it in their spare time. They come back to us. If they get their idea funded, they get a lot of money. And they also get, which is more important actually to all of them, but they get the idea funded. And I was very proud that the last 3 winners, the first, second and third of the last competition were out of Europe, and some fantastic ideas whereby you drive into a garage, you have a license plate recognition, it automatically debits your PayPal account when you press a key. This is not going to happen tomorrow, but great ideas, and I think that our US colleagues were blown away actually by the innovation coming out of Europe, so it shows that we can do it.